The video Sanctuary is the most famous entry in the fake documentary Q series. The companion book published alongside the series contains the specific archival evidence needed to decode the history of this location. This evidence is presented as a summer independent study project from August 1984. It was written by a fourth grader named Tepe, titled The History of My Town. Tepe begins by interviewing his grandfather, Haruyuki, documenting his life as a Yamako, a traditional mountain lumberjack. Haruyuki describes waking up at 4 a.m. to strip bark and haul logs using a mountain railway cart. Through his grandfather's stories, Tepe traces the town's industrial evolution. He notes how the older generation could cut 15 to 20 trees a day with hand axes, a figure that rose to 50 once chainsaws were introduced to the mountains. The handwritten notes on forestry and manual labor stand in direct opposition to the mystery this document eventually reveals. Analyzing this 1980s homework assignment is the primary method for uncovering the origin of the Sanctuary tape. Tepe expands his research into the streets, interviewing locals. A fifth grader recommends the egg roll bread at Miyahara Bakery. A middle schooler discusses catching black bass at the local lake using Gary Yamamoto lures. As the project progresses, his interview subjects age. He speaks with a lumber store manager about the town's 300-year trade history and a train station worker who explains how Taisho-era rail revolutionized local logistics. Because this notebook is tied to the fake documentary Q investigation, these wholesome details provide a baseline of normalcy that we can monitor for signs of disruption. Tepe was a student following a step-by-step sociological method for a school grade. By interviewing the oldest members of his community, he inadvertently constructed a roadmap to the town's most guarded secrets. The tone shifts on page 7. Tepe sits down with an elder named Shirakawa to record the area's older history. Shirakawa claims that during the Sengoku period, villagers were tasked with disposing of battlefield casualties. Tens of thousands of corpses were hauled into the mountains and piled together. According to the elder, these mass graves led to the peaks being designated as cursed mountains. Shirakawa describes the protectors of these grounds, monks dressed in white robes who dug themselves into the earth to guard burial sites and punish intruders. Following this interview, Tepe's summer project moves away from oral history. He begins a physical investigation to find the boundaries of the cursed mountain. On page 12, Tepe and two friends, Nori and Takanori, launch a 3-day trek deep into the woods to find the mass graves. On day 1, they follow an unfamiliar path and find a hokora, a small stone shrine, and a towering stone monument known as an ishihi. Nori falls ill immediately after they discover these markers. The boys dig into the soil looking for remains, but find only earthworms. By day 2, Takanori drops out of the trip. Nori continues for a short time, but eventually stops, telling Tepe there's no point in going any further up the mountain. The group has been dismantled by illness and anxiety. Tepe is now isolated, with the mountain's geographical defenses having removed his companions one by one. On day 3, Tepe returns alone. He brings a camera, leaves the designated trail, and climbs over a high fence into a restricted zone. He wades through tall grass and gets lost, relying on a compass to find the shrine. While resting in the forest, he notices a hollow bamboo stick protruding from the soil. Tepe attempts to dig the bamboo stick up, but finds it is anchored too deep in the earth to be removed. This discovery matches the history of Sokushinbutsu, where ascetic monks were buried alive in meditation. To survive, they used a hollow bamboo tube reaching the surface for air. By attempting to pull the stick from the dirt, Tepe was physically disturbing a buried figure. The myth of the white-robed monks was a description of an active ritual. Tepe had located a site where these guardians were still physically present beneath his feet. The notebook concludes with a disjointed final page. It contains a single musical note and a poem written in Tepe's fourth-grade handwriting. The lyrics read, "Whispers of the wind, groans of the earth. The heights of the sky, surrender your body. There is no fear, the light of prayer shone in the silence." The shift in Tepe's writing suggests his state of mind was altered by his time spent in the restricted zone or his contact with the buried object. The horror of Sanctuary is found in the methodical documentation of a child's own trespass, found in a school notebook and submitted as a summer homework assignment.